I just got the first moment of quiet that I've had like all day, all night. I wake up with these evil gremlins that we call puppies in this house, gnawing at the chair, screaming, trying to dig holes into it to burrow onto the inside, which is a continual effort they've been undertaking. It's really quite the project with these little curmudgeons. And I wake up having to deal with that after being stuck awake until 3 a.m. last night due to a combination of severe anxiety and paranoia due to a number of things that I seemed convinced would happen, but have no real bearing on reality and are so fantastical that would never even remotely have a chance of occurring, but I somehow convinced myself would occur if you look at it squinted and your head turned at the right angle and the sun is beaming in the right direction. I was convinced that from that very turned and unclear and foggy perspective, it was true. Although really only a part of me believed it. Like, I was not fully convinced of these delusions, but they had taken enough of a hold over me to shudder my entire body with anxiety. Like, I was shaking, and I had, like, when I get anxious like that, it feels like almost the whole world around me is elevated. Like, I was looking around with complete and utter vigilance. I was looking around alert, fully there where I was, and it makes it feel like almost like gravity becomes more light, and like your head, they say keep your head on a swivel. When I turn my head, when I feel that alert, it literally feels like it's on a swivel. Like my sense of felt gravity has changed. And I notice like my vision gets kind of blurry around my eyes. Like whatever I'm looking at, it's like I focus on it in a way where it becomes like 4K. It becomes really easy to see, but everything else around me gets like blurry. And that's how I felt last night, and at certain points my heart was beating out of my chest, and it was a generally unpleasant experience. But I started making some plans with my fiance on when I could see her again, and that came to be something I was really excited about. What I wasn't excited about was the ramifications of potentially going to Canada again and having to deal with those wacko loons that they have up there wasting their citizens' taxpayer money on a wild goose chase, that of course being me. And that became a whole ordeal because the prospect of having to deal with those geeked out loons again, and their junior detective lackeys who think they've found the biggest case of their lifetime, really, really did a number on a psyche that felt ruptured as it was over the existing anxieties and woes and problems I seem to have been unintentionally ruminating on. But I was nonetheless really excited at the prospect of seeing her again. I mean, of course. And so it was like I had mixed emotions. And those mixed emotions were enough to keep me awake until like 3 a.m. I ended up calling her because neither of us could sleep. And and that was fun in its own right, but by the time I was done, I was ready to go off and go to bed. So I did, and just a couple hours later, once the sun starts coming up, the internal clock on those goddamn gremlins that I have terrorizing me every day, they it's that clock starts moving. It their internal alarm goes off, and then they wake me up with their yapping as though it's an actual alarm. And it's like, at that point, I wake up and I can't get back to sleep, because when I wake up, I'm awake. I cannot get back to sleep when I wake up. Like, I'm just done once I wake up. Sometimes I wake up in the night and I'm tired enough to get back to sleep proper, but most of the time I'm fucking awake if I get woken up and I cannot get back to sleep, no matter how many hours of laying back down there is. Especially, when I'm on a certain sleep schedule that I'm trying to change. I was trying to get back on the nocturnal clock again, because being awake in the daytime I find so incredibly alienating that I want nothing more than to change it back to the way it was not too long ago. So that was my goal, and I I attempt to make right on that. And then um these little jihadists that I have running around in this room, start their arf arf arfing and screeching and shit, and it just, shit wakes me up. The thing is, the reason they're this erratic and irritable in the first place is because they're made from what I like to call double incest. Their mom and their dad were the children of incest from the same litter, and then they fuck each other, and then they make all these puppies that are like incest times two. That's double incest right there. And it's already bad to have dogs that were produced from incest. Like, they could have a whole range of health problems later in their life. They're going to be less intelligent. They could grow to be smaller than they're supposed to be. It's bad enough. And I can tell, one of those dogs, the mom I fucking hate. I do not like that dog. But the dad, I actually love that dog. I'll never be able to love a dog the way that I loved Bert when he got killed at the very beginning of, what was it, last year? My fucking brain. Yeah, it was last year. I try not to think about it at this point. By that goddamn pit bull of my mom's. He got killed, and I always said, I'm never going to have another dog again, or at least not another small dog, because none of them will ever be as good as Bert, and I stand by that. But that dog, I have some affection for him. I have some affinity for him. It took a long time, but I took a shine to him. And, he's not as dumb as he could be. I guess I'll put it like that. Bert was always really, really smart. That was part of why I loved that dog, was because, like, he was so intelligent. The things he was capable of doing and that you could train him to do, it was unbelievable. But, this dog, he's a little bit mad, Yeah, I mean, we're all a little bit mad, but having to deal with his fucking kids is going to make me go mad. And I mean off the deep end, off that ledge, never coming back. If I, if I can't, call animal control or get these things to an animal shelter soon. I mean, I feel like, These things are gonna make me fly off the handle. I use hyperbole, of course, but wow. Like, they're a handful, and they're a handful because they're, they're incest times two. When you have dogs that are made from incest, not only are they less intelligent, they're less predictable in terms of personality, they're more erratic, they're more irritable. You know, think double that, and you're gonna have some completely off the wall puppies. And that's what these puppies are. Like, they're constantly fighting each other, they're biting into each other until they start bleeding. Like, I have never seen puppies do something like that before. This behavior is like unheard of to me. So it's really quite a handful, and it's waking me up every night. That's not even to say anything about the sound from the other room, because the walls in this house are so goddamn thin that I hear everything from within the house. That includes people shouting at each other. That includes music playing. And not too long ago, I was just trying to lay in this bed, and I had to hear music blasting. It was like having noisy neighbors. And I'm not gonna be staying here that much longer. I'm just here temporarily before I go back to my own spot. But like it being here, it really does feel like I'm in some kind of MK Ultra style torture chamber. Like, you get these dogs whining and crying and screeching constantly because a car goes by on the road. And what's one of the main tactics they use in the military to break people psychologically? It's sounds of animals suffering. I have to listen to other people's music and their conversations and their ruminations and their proclamations and declarations, and it wears on you. It's like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be party to that. I don't even want to be tangentially related to that. I don't want to touch that with a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 foot pole. But here I am, and it feels like the world is giving me pole. And I just have to lay back, ass puckered, and take it. And I don't want to. I don't want to hear the noise. And I don't want to have to deal with these little jihadists running around terrorizing the home and causing a commotion. It's too much. It is too much. And I'm lucky that it's quiet right now, but it's like I don't know how much more of this I can take. So I'm glad to be going back to my own spot relatively soon, and I'm also glad to be hopefully going to go see my fiance in not too long. Depending on how they're acting at the border, it may cause a bit of a stir. They may cause a bit of a stir, not me. Because every time I've had to deal with those overly paranoid, schizophrenic lunatics up there, I've been extremely cordial and polite. But, those guys are so jumpy that, you never know what kind of tricks they might try to play on you. I wasn't prepared at all for the kind of KGB Orwellian style manipulation tactics and psychological torture that they would try to inflict on me at the border. I had no idea that these guys had a similar tenor and type of training to US Border Patrol, because those guys are just fascists. Like, US Border Patrol is a Nazi organization, and I do not use that word lightly. Like, because I'm a US citizen, they have to let me in, but you talk to these guys and they are like, it's almost like they think everyone who goes through that door is subhuman. They just don't have empathy, and they're trained in these psychological torture tactics to try to get you to claim that you've done things that you haven't even done. Like they're so slippery that it's like they're trying to get you to confess to things you haven't done. They're trying to break you and take like any sign that you're tired, or that you even take a moment to respond or to think, as inherently suspicious. They're just so fucking jumpy. It really is fascistic the way that the US border guards are. Of course, they can't do shit to me because I have a blue passport and they gotta let me in. And so, I'll take my time to shit on them if I want to. But, obviously I can't do that to the Canadian glowies because I'm not a citizen of that country and it's a different place. I just didn't fucking know they had the same tactics and the same, psychological tricks and all this nonsense up there. I was thinking, that was a peaceful, democratic, reasonable country. Because every time I've ever gone to Europe, they've been respectful. They treated me like a human being, and I was respectful in return. They felt like good cops. They were doing their job. They weren't forceful. Like, in Europe, like, you can have just been to fucking Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Syria, all North Korea, all on the same trip. They'll take a look at your passport and, they'll give you a smile and let you right on through. It's nothing like this fascist shit we have going on in the US and Canada. But, I didn't know that when I tried to go in, and so I was completely and utterly unprepared for the kind of bullshit that they would try to put me through. So, I am never, going to forgive those raving lunatics, those fascist bastards, for the way that they treated me and all that they put me through. But, the incoherent ramblings of their schizophrenic paranoia may just be something that I'm subjected to once again. The thing is, this time, I can come prepared and I can give them very short, quick responses and provide them all of the information truthful that they're looking for, and hopefully they'll let me on my merry way. But, I won't hold my fucking breath, that's for sure. It's just, I just wish I lived in a reasonable country. I wish my fiance lived in a reasonable country. It's like, there is terminal rot all throughout the US and Canada when it comes to the security state. Like, 9/11 happened, and then our two countries just collectively, when it came to the security apparatus, dropped their IQ by about 80 points. And, now we're in this fucking mess. It's just ridiculous, the amount of power these guys have, and the antiquated and, frankly, authoritarian and un-American and un-Canadian tactics that they're trained in. It's like, we fought against the Soviet Union. We won against the Soviet Union, against Nazi Germany. And then, we institute their policies at home. It's just maddening, It's something to really make your head spin. But, that's the world we live in. If I don't want to deal with it, then, I could just go off into the woods, build a little cabin there and live off the land, and I won't have to talk to fucking nobody no more, and for all of you federal agents who apparently monitor my every goddamn move on this channel now, no, it is not because I have any terrorist or extremist leanings, you fucking morons. It's because I want to be left alone. It's like, I make a satirical video, a video where the statements literally cancel each other out because they're so contradictory, about things that no one believes. Like, a video so blatantly obvious that it's satire, that it's parody. And these fucking morons in the security state, these fucking room temperature IQ retards get a hold of it, and they assume that what I'm saying in it is true. Like, do you listen to yourself when you talk? Like, get a hold of yourself, man. That's what I want to say to every person that works in the security state. Like, somebody needs to run for office that runs and wins on a platform of abolishing the FBI, abolishing the NSA, and abolishing Customs and Border Patrol. And then, putting pressure on the Canadians to do a similar thing. These flagrant violations of our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, it's gotta stop, man. Like, I just wish there was a real viable alternative. Like, I think Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon has proposed some pretty good solutions. Bernie Sanders has been out there fighting for this stuff. Ron Paul, back when he was in Congress, was fighting against a lot of this stuff. There are individual people, but it's like both parties are just unanimous in their support for these deeply fascistic policies on our border, at the NSA, and so forth. It's just, I'm proud to be an American, but when I see stuff like this, I am ashamed of my country. And I do feel a little ashamed to be an American, to know that these un-American people, these un-American institutions have garnered so much power in this great country, and that influence has been so toxic that it actually influenced our neighbors up north as well. It's just sickening. I hope every single person at these institutions that are quote unquote meant to keep us safe, even though that's not what they do. They're just weaponized against their own population. I hope every single person at these institutions gets laid off, gets fired, and has to go work at fucking McDonald's. Not that there's anything against or wrong with McDonald's workers, but every single one of these fascist bastards who works at these institutions looks down on those people with complete and utter contempt. And so it's like, I just hope that that they get that treatment themselves, and they get humbled by it. That's all I can say. Yeah, Yeah, no way. No way am I ever gonna forgive these guys for the way that they treated me. Um, and the witch hunt that they went on trying to look for me too. It's just insane. You know, coming to my house and asking me about my videos and stuff. It's like, what has this country come to? You know, we used to have freedom of expression in this country, you know, and it used to be recognized when it was being used for comedic or satirical purposes. And it's now, everything has gotten so polarized, and you have these older folks in these institutions looking at these videos that are clearly meant to be jokes, clearly meant to be ironic, and they find these shit posts and they're thinking like, this is a serious threat to our democracy, when it's like just some kid, you know, joking in a YouTube video. Like, you know, don't you guys have school shooters to catch? Like you go after me, and yet you can't catch that faggot Robert Cremo the Third, or whoever, whatever his name was, who posted just about every 5 seconds about how he wanted to do a school shooting. You guys are so incompetent. You guys are so bad at your job that you can't catch that guy, like a clear school shooter in the making, somebody who all the time was saying that he wanted to go do a mass shooting. You can't catch that guy who, what was it? I don't know if it was Aurora. It was some nightclub in Colorado. This guy was literally on a registry that said he couldn't purchase a firearm. Because he had family connections, he was able to get off of it. He literally got off of it because of his family connections. And then he bought a gun and he shot all of those innocent gay people at that nightclub. It's like, you can't catch that guy. You can't catch fucking Awake the rapper. Like, you can't catch that Uvalde prick who was posting on Snapchat and every other place about how he was literally going to go shoot up a school. He just said it. He just straight up said it in all these internet posts. He was on their radar. They didn't fucking do anything. He goes and shoots up all these kids at Robb Elementary. And what do the police do? They sit outside for hours, too afraid to go in and disarm this active shooter. What does the FBI do? Nothing. When he had made all of these consecutive posts about how he had intended on doing something exactly that. Someone with a clear history of mental disturbances, a public record of mental health problems. And same in that Robert Cremo prick. Like, you can't catch these guys, people who are a real threat to society, people who it's your fucking job to catch. And you go after someone who made a satirical video about wanting state-mandated trans polyamorous girlfriends and thinking Jan 6 was like just a walk in the Capitol or whatever I said. Like, it's a fucking joke, man. Like, I don't know what this world has come to, that people can't recognize clear fucking satire, clear as day, when it's in front of them. And especially if you look at my record, like, just look at the titles of my videos. I am very clearly a progressive libertarian. I believe in libertarian social systems and values, which is quite literally the opposite of what's being advocated for by that character that I played in that comedic video. Like, it's just fucking insane to me. I don't know what happened to this country. You know, they go on a witch hunt, a wild goose chase of some kid who made jokes online, but they can't catch people who are murdering innocent people, murdering innocent children in mass numbers. Like, they can't do their fucking job. So, you know what we do with people who can't do their job? We fire them. If I got hired for a job at a grocery store and I was consistently not showing up, or I was showing up, not bagging the groceries, not stocking the shelves, or, you know, maybe I put some of the cans up, maybe I bagged only half the groceries and forced the customer to do the rest, I would be considered a bad employee. I would get fired for not doing my job. And yet, these people who work in these embedded institutions that are unable to keep Americans safe, that are unable to catch real domestic terrorists, that are unable to stop mass shootings, but instead, you know, go after quote-unquote radical Catholics or whatever that report was about, you know, just normal religious people who have some conservative values. They went out and did a memo that said that they were a threat to American democracy. They go after me for making a satirical video that is so clearly incoherent and, like, so unbelievable that, like, no one would have those opinions. There is no one, and I mean no one, who has the opinions that were espoused in that video. You want to know why? Because it is an exaggerated caricature intended for comedic purposes. And, like, they go after me for that. Someone who could not even hold that prop that looked like a realistic firearm. Someone who could not even hold it properly and comedically joked about the fact that someone who couldn't hold that prop would not be able to attack the U.S. government. It said in there, the character that I was playing literally said that they couldn't enact a plan or an act of that type. And if you look at me, the person who was playing that character in that satirical video, like, my arms are tiny, I got long femboy hair, like, you know, I don't look even remotely threatening. So what threat is there? None. Like, there is none. And yet, they go after me for that, but they can't catch these real threats to our country. To me, that's a dereliction of duty. That means that they are not doing their job. And I think the American people at the ballot box should be, you know, primarying existing candidates who don't want to abolish the FBI and these other institutions, and then get candidates that are for that in there so they can vote on legislation to do exactly that. And then, you know, there can be a mass firing of these guys. But, you know, until the American people wake up to these problems and decide that their report card, their TPS reports have been out of whack for fucking decades now, you know, nothing's gonna get better. But thankfully, you know, the conversation is actually being had now in mainstream discourse. So, you know, I have hope for some candidates to get in there and change things, but, you know, until then, like, stuff like this is just going to keep happening. Hell, they're probably going to bother me, you know? and I'll show them my channel. We'll go down the list, and they'll find out that I'm not a political extremist, and I am not dangerous. But they can litigate, they can, spy on me, investigate, do whatever they want till the cows come home. But they're not going to find anything, because there's nothing to be found. It's just harassment, really. It's like being at the office and trying to look busy because you don't want your boss to think you're doing a bad job. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm sick of it. I mean, all of this is to say, I was pretty stressed out about the prospect of having to deal with those cunts at the border again. And that was one of the things that really got me going with anxiety. But I need sleep if my anxiety is like ever going to substantially improve, and hopefully, we'll be able to get rid of these puppies so I can sleep a little easier. But either way, they're not gonna be my problem, because soon enough I'll be able to go back to my own place, and I'll also be able to go back to my fiance, either in Canada or in the US, if Canada just miraculously decides to not let me in for whatever reason. I won't even look into staying there. She can come here, and over time we'll do the process and she can become an American. But we'll be together nonetheless. Nothing's gonna stop that. It's just these fucking government people up my ass all the time seem hell-bent on trying to make my life as difficult and unpleasant as possible. They can all eat a fat fucking cock.